Okay, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon to people on the east coast of Canada and around the world. Thanks so much for tuning in. Welcome to another edition of Complete Sports Media's podcast. I'm your host, Darren Campbell. And as you can see to my right, Sami Jo Small has joined us today. Three-time Olympian, five-time world champion, two-time world champion, MVP, Stanford University grad, and new author of this fantastic book, The Role Played. Really excited to have Sami Jo Small join us today. Hi, Sami. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Darren. I appreciate it. And I love your setup. I love all the Canada stuff. That's so awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's for me or that's just always there, but that's really cool.
No, it's for you. Yeah, I do
love it.
change the backdrop a bit here and there, but yeah, I decided to bring out some of the jerseys I have and display some of the great books and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's nice to be Canadian. Nice to celebrate Canada. The great game of hockey, obviously, is fabric of Canada, and you played an amazing role in Canada's history, female hockey. Grew up playing men's hockey, eventually was given an opportunity to play with Canada's national women's team. 11 years you played there. Tell me about that first call you got. You were getting an opportunity to come and represent your country. That must have been such a thrill.
Well, certainly the first call I got was to come to try out for the national team. And I almost didn't go. It wasn't like it is today where we have so many scouts across the country and you're scouted from a young age and you kind of know that you're in the system. I was on scholarship for track and field at Stanford University when I got called by Wally Kozak, who was attempting to convince me to come to Calgary to try out for the very first women's Olympic hockey team. And I had never really seen other women play, so I didn't know what level my game was at compared to them. I was basically just banking on this one guy, Wally, who I didn't know at all, having some insights and just really trusting his instincts, I guess. So I just basically on my way back to California from Winnipeg on my flight, I just had my flight stop in Calgary. You can either choose to stop in Calgary or Vancouver on the way to San Francisco. So I went to Calgary and I really just assumed I'd be there for a couple of days. But one day turned into another. And then I was asked to stay and officially try out for the Olympic team. So it was, I think, a little bit different than most dreams happen in today's era, because most young girls or young hockey players dream of someday playing for their Olympic team. But I never had those dreams because women's hockey was not an Olympic sport. So it just all kind of happened all of a sudden. And then there I was in Calgary trying out for the Olympic team.
Do you see that same story ever happening again with the scouting across North America, around the world? Do you see somebody that is just off the radar as much as you were? Do you see them ever getting an opportunity like that again?
Well, I think perhaps some strange and different opportunities may happen. In that young girls are scouted from young ages to play for the provincial team, play for the under-18 national team, college scholarships. But as we know, lots of athletes don't develop until later on in life. And so I think what we're starting to see is female hockey players who have perhaps been under the radar, we'll say, not emerge till they're 25, 26. And so that I think is going to be the story in the future, because a 17-year-old girl is not going to be able to compete against a 25-year-old woman. And having been put in all those years and dedication to the sport, the more opportunities there are, especially at the elite level, to keep those girls around and engaged and playing full time. I think the more that we're going to see girls emerge later, just like in the NHL, where you're just actually picking the best of the best.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You did play with a wide range of females from 17 to into their 40s. You were able to play until you're 42, which is amazing to realize that you had that long of a career. Even after you left the national team, you were able to get into women's professional hockey, eventually become a general manager and the vice chairman of the CWHL. It's incredible that you were able to just forge such an amazing long career in hockey, and just playing on small rinks in Winnipeg, just loving the game, able to make it your life's work. It's an incredible story.
Well, thank you. I think it is unique really to the era too. I think, I didn't have 4 years of college hockey that was super intense, that I see now with the girls. It's different. The pressures on them are different. When I was growing up, it wasn't like I had scouts coming to the games. It wasn't sort of the pressure filled expectations that there are now for the young girls. So, I think I really do think that I was able to play into my 40s because I really didn't become an elite hockey player until I was into my 20s. And so it was almost new to me to be able to play women's hockey. I'd never played with women before, to be able to, compete internationally and to play in meaningful games. I had never had that experience, but a lot of the young girls now coming through will have had that experience. And I don't know. I see a lot more burnout than I think there was of my generation, but simply because we didn't have those opportunities. But I certainly felt it in the sport of track and field, which is what I ended up on scholarship at Stanford to throw the discus and javelin. And I know what it's like to go through the NCAA program, and it's hard. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of training, and you do become burnt out. It's hard to maintain that high standard all the time. But I didn't have that in hockey, and for me, I think that's why I could find so much joy in it. Is I never really felt burnt out, and so I feel fortunate for that. But I also understand why some of the girls now feel that way and maybe don't continue to play after college, or maybe don't continue to play after the national team, that there is just not as much of the want to have more experiences. They've had enough experiences. There isn't a place where they can be paid full time to play hockey if you're not at the national level, and maybe they don't live in that city and they're just done. And that's the end of the career. But, I feel very fortunate that I got to have so many different experiences over so many different decades of hockey, for sure.
Yeah. You're incredibly lucky. It's really nice to find a passion for something and be able to make you have a living. That's sort of the definition of happiness, is what I've heard. If you can wake up every day and it just doesn't really feel like work, and you can really have a great life. And in reading your book, I feel like you've had a magnificent life. Got to meet so many fantastic people. I cannot believe how many people that you get to mention in this book. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that you played with, and it's just amazing. I really, really, really enjoyed reading the book. Tell me what some of your favorite parts of the book were when you look back. I know there was times that were tough. But some of those amazing moments, putting a gold medal around your neck. Tell me what your favorite parts were.
Well, I think, you mentioned about all the different people. And I think that really for me, it was the people. And my favorite parts about writing the book are perhaps different than the favorite parts about living the actual 10 years or 11 years from that book. But my favorite parts of writing was writing about a lot of my teammates that I had not seen in years, and reconnecting and being able to share a little bit about who they were and what sort of influence they had on the national team and the trials and tribulations that they went through. So I think that was my favorite part about it all, was so many incredible women that I had the fortunate ability to call my teammates and my friends, but now having this ability to now share these people with Canadians, with hockey fans around the world, is really special, because I think people need to know about these women. They need to know about that dynasty and who contributed to it. And it wasn't just, a few scattered people that of names that you might already know. It was really an entire generation of girls pushing each other to be better and competing against each other.
Yeah, obviously, the names that we all know, Haley Wickenheiser, Cassie Campbell being on Hockey Night in Canada, Tessa Bonhomme being a broadcaster. Those are the names that jump out for you. Cami Granado, now a scout with the new Seattle franchise, things like that. But it was really fantastic to see so many of the other women getting some recognition, being able to, hear their stories, a little bit about their life, a little bit about them coming into the team, sometimes getting cut and coming back a second year, and having so many different experiences. I really, really loved that you were able to bring so many of their stories to the forefront, and I'm sure they're going to be very excited to see the book and read their name in print too.
Well, and I think that's why I really wanted to get it right too. It took me a long time to write the book because I wanted to ensure that the history was written correctly. So I did, before I published, I shared the manuscript around with friends and teammates just to make sure that I got the storyline at least half decently right, because it is their lives too. And, I'm fully cognizant that they will be reading it and that their friends and family are going to be reading it. So I didn't want to get some of the history wrong. I'm sure I probably did at some point. Trying to find historical data from that era is hard. I mean, we didn't have digital photos, so everything is either on VHS tape or it's in an actual photo format. But trying to find box scores, trying to find game records even is really difficult from that era. So it took me a long time to sort of navigate through all of that. But I'm incredibly proud to call these people my friends, but now to actually share them with other people is really special. And they all had such an incredible influence. And you're right, there's some names that people know, and deservedly so. I mean, Cassie and Haley and Tessa are amazing people. But there's so many more women, and not just at the national team level. We had girls that just barely missed it over and over and over again, or played club hockey at the highest level, which essentially professional hockey, pushing everybody else to be better as well, and excelling on that stage as well. So I just didn't want this history to be forgotten. I didn't want this to be missed out. And with everything going on in elite women's hockey right now, I wanted some historical reference to know how to move forward. What not to do and what to do as we move forward in women's hockey.
Yeah, I believe this will be such a historical reference. I think we're going to see so many quotes from it. I think Wikipedia is going to utilize it so much to update women's pages and some of the people that have been involved in the sports that you were involved in. It's going to be hopefully read in schools one day, that type of thing.
That would be nice. If you could push for that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, let's definitely push for it. So I just really was excited for you. 10 years, you decided to start writing this after the Vancouver Olympics, and it finally came to fruition. Tell me about the excitement when you finally saw this, be able to finally be published, and you were able to, start putting it out there. The excitement level must have been just off the charts.
So initially when I signed with the publisher, with ECW, it was almost a year ago now. So I had signed with them October of last year. And that was exciting because now you've signed the publishing deal. I'd already written the manuscript, so I knew that there wasn't sort of too many more steps about that. But then it just kind of is a process. You get into the funnel of the publishing house that, other books are in front of you. You're working on the cover design. You're working on the typesetting of the pages. You're working on all the minutia of the book, the intro and making sure you thank the right people, the forward, all the small details. And so that's really what the last year has been. So it has been, working on the minutia of the details and not necessarily on the stories. And so finally, when it was, coming time and it started to go up on Amazon and started to have pre-sales, that was really exciting, but it really wasn't, I hadn't seen one yet. I hadn't seen a book yet. And then Amazon started to send them out to people prior to the publishing date, which I didn't realize you could get them prior, but it's basically whenever they get printed, they get shipped out. And so people started to get them actually even before I got any, and it was incredible to see them real with people. And then I got my first box at my house, which was really exciting. But I think the moment that really stands out to me the most is walking into a bookstore and seeing it amongst all these other books, all these other hockey books that, I always go to the sports section, and to see my book there was really special. And a little bit surreal too, that these are, my stories, these are our stories, and here they are available for other people to read. So I don't know that it's completely sunk in yet. I've done some literary festivals where you now are grouped in as an author, and it's strange to think of myself that way, because I never had really thought of myself that way prior, but I guess once you publish a book, then you are considered an author. And now, I look at some other authors and how prolific they are. And, it just is amazing. The whole inner workings of the publishing world and the writing world has just been so awe-inspiring. And so to even be amongst some of those people is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, I know that you never envisioned that this would be your path, but yeah, it's fantastic that you are now a published author, and you are a distinguished speaker. Tell me about the designation that you have. I've heard that only 500 people in the world have this designation, and that must have been really hard and challenging to get that, and to be able to be amongst those people. It must be very exciting as well.
Yeah, thank you for asking. That's my sort of real job, is I work as a professional speaker. And how I got into speaking, I'm an engineer by trade, but with the national team, you're kind of forced into doing a lot of community events, really sharing the story of your team and encouraging people to get involved in women's hockey, come watch the games. And most of my teammates just hated doing any of that. And I really enjoyed speaking. As my career was progressing, people started asking me to come to some corporate events and some association events. And I started to realize that this could be a real job. Like, people will pay you to do this. I didn't know that existed. And so it just seemed like it didn't feel like a job. You talked at the beginning about, that's probably the definition of happiness, is when you don't feel like it's a job. And I never feel like getting up on stage or being around people is hard work. I feel like it's probably more fulfilling for me than it is actually for the audience, but I really, really enjoy it. And so I decided to make that my career. And by making my career, I joined the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, and was amongst my peers as speakers. So not very many athletes, but mostly speakers on, it could be on sales, it could be on technical details within certain professions, but we're all there and we're all sharing best practices, how to speak from the stage, learning everything from how to do your taxes to how to cross the border to speak, how to, all the different things that go into becoming a speaker. And earning your CSP, the Certified Speaking Professional, is the highest designation as a professional speaker. So that was something that I sort of looked towards as a selling feature, but also pushing myself to be amongst the best, I think, is something that comes from my hockey background. I saw a goal and I just wanted to achieve it. So it was different kind of work. I mean, you're still doing the same speaking engagements, you're still doing all of that, but it really meant that you had to be very detailed. You had to be document all of your speaking gigs, and you had to have your clients speak on your behalf. So I think that was maybe the hardest thing, was having to ask people to say nice things about you. But it meant that you needed to earn the designation. You need to do over 50 presentations a year, and you need to do that over the course of, I think it's between 8 and 10 years. So it does take a long time to earn it, but you're just kind of working away, and you're learning best practices from all these other incredible people. And once I did earn it, there's this big ceremony that you go down to in Washington, D.C., because it is a worldwide certification. And you get to be amongst the best for a little bit. And then all of a sudden you realize how far you have to go to be, to be really, really good like some of these people. So I think at every stage of every part of my career, whether it's speaking, whether it's hockey, or whether it's writing, I've kind of always jumped in with both feet and then looked around and realized, wow, these people are really good. I need to train, or I need to work, or I need to be better. I need to learn how to write, all these different things that, I always encourage people to just, if something's new, just dive in, but don't be afraid to listen and look around and seek help from the people around you. Because most people are really willing to help. They don't want to step on toes. So never be afraid to ask, because that's how you'll get better.
Yeah, that's a really good advice, and very poignant. It's hard to ask people to give you some self-evaluation and praise, but you have some really, really nice words on the back of the book. Tell me about the 4 people that were able to help you with giving some praise to you.
The book recommendations, I'm very fortunate to have got from 4 incredible people, and 4 people that I've known in very different ways. So starting with Jennifer Bottrell, who's been one of my best friends through all of this Olympic experience, but also now lives with her family quite close to me, and we both have 4-year-old daughters that play together. It was that was an easy ask, because I felt like she is so featured in the book, and it was somebody that I have such admiration and respect for, that I really wanted her to be part of that. Second one, Natalie Spooner, who I didn't actually play with for that long, but I was played with for 4 or 5 seasons, and then was her general manager. She just is somebody that I think is iconic in this country, for just to start, but then it's just such an amazing person. She just is so nice and caring and genuine, and she lives close to me as well, and so we've worked out together and just have really developed a great friendship, despite the fact that she is a full decade younger than me, more than a decade younger than me, but she just always had this maturity to her, and it was somebody that I think at times is maybe not given the credit within the hockey world that she deserves. And, everybody assumes that she has this notoriety because of other things, but the reality is her game and her skill level is so incredible. And when she was playing for our Toronto team, she really took our team on her shoulders and never complained, and just did the work, put in the effort. And I can't say enough about Natalie Spooner. The next one was Mayor Hazel McCallion, who was the longtime mayor of Mississauga, who now I think is about 98 years old, still going strong, still working every day. And when we were playing club hockey, at one point we represented Mississauga and we won the national championship. And Mayor Hazel had us over to her house. Now, she was probably only late 80s at this point, so young and spry for Mayor Hazel, but she had this big vat of beers for us. She was cooking chicken on the barbecue, serving everybody. No helpers in her house, just running the whole city, but also hosting these girls for a national championship. And we would have her come out and drop a puck at our game ceremony, puck drop, and she would put her skates on and do a lap for the entire crowd and then drop the puck. And even in my very final year, in the final year of the CWHL, she dropped the puck on the final game for the Toronto Furies. And she was late getting there. She has a driver now at 96. She was late getting there. And we were talking to the other person on the phone that was in the car with her. And so we delayed the game by 5 minutes because we knew they were close. But the parking lot was jammed, and it was a sold out venue at what was called the Massacre Center before. And she comes running in, and literally running in, like they park the car, they throw the keys to one of my volunteers, and Hazel is now jogging along. So this little 97-year-old woman is just like belting it. and she jogs and runs right onto the red carpet. So luckily the red carpet was like solid. She could have just failed, but just like ran right into it, and we're just so excited to, saying hi to all the players along the way. And she just has such a passion for women's hockey. So I wanted her there, but she also played professional hockey back in the 40s in Montreal.
Mhm.
So she has this whole history within the game that I think needed to be recognized. And then the last one was Ron McLean. So I don't know Ron as well, but I know Carrie McLean, his wife, really well. I play adult rec hockey with her now.
Wow.
And she's amazing. She started playing, I think when she was 50, she started playing for the first time ever.
Wow.
And her Honey Badgers team is all these women that started later. Most of the women started later in their lives, have become best friends. And now they have training camps. They play like 3 or 4 times a week. They have, I just started playing with them this season, and we have a home and away and a third jersey and socks to go with it. This is a rec team that plays like 40-minute games. But it's as much about, all of that other stuff as it is about the snacks afterwards. Somebody has to bring snacks and drinks, and they have this set up out in the parking lot. That's just awesome. In COVID era, we all have masks on, but somebody will bring like Timmy, like if you're not playing, you're in charge of all this other stuff. It has morphed into way more than hockey. So knowing that, Ron is so iconic in the hockey world, having somebody like him be able to do that was incredible. But it was really thanks to my friendship with Carrie that was able to happen. And he can be the lone man on the back of the book.
Yeah, no, it was really fantastic to see him. Obviously, as you said, icon, and all those other ladies. Yeah, it's incredible. Really nice to see the praise there for you in the book. I really want you to read a passage or two out of the book. Can you grab the book and we can find a spot?
Like to read. Did you have something in mind?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I got one.
Okay, turn to page 29, and I'll do the same, just to make sure I've got the right spot. Yeah, at the bottom, the 1984 Pride watching on TV. Would you be able to read that for our listeners? I'm going to just shout out to our partners and sponsors, and then once I'm done, we can get that passage read. It was one of my favorite parts of the book, and I'm sure lots of people are telling you all these favorite parts, but I'll tell you why it's my favorite.
Like that one. Okay, why don't you say thank you to your sponsors while I tell my dogs to stop barking?
Perfect. Sounds great. Okay. We'd really love to talk about our partners and sponsors. First of all, Anchor FM, a fantastic sponsor, a great podcast platform. You'll hear some words about them at the beginning of the podcast. Also, Verbero, hockey equipment and apparel company, industry leader in technology, performance, and value. And their V350 stick is the lightest stick on the market. Also, Pampas and Possibilities. Pampas and Possibilities has designs and sells dried floral arrangements and installations. Designers of handmade, curated, coastal, bohemian decor at reasonable prices. You can find a lot of details on our Instagram page, our Facebook page, or completesportsmedia.com, and support our partners and sponsors, please, a lot. Okay, so your dog's all out of the picture now, I guess, for a bit.
We locked him out of the room, so I apologize about that. You never know with home podcasts, right?
Exactly, yeah. I laugh at a lot of the podcasts you see. Family members are peeking their head in, animals are coming around. This Zoom world we live in now.
I know, and suddenly something has like appeared out of the corner, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, please read this passage. It's about you watching the Olympics as a young girl.
For sure. So, 1984, Pride, watching on TV. I'm on our gold plush family room carpet, legs stretched out under the coffee table. I'm 8 years old and wearing my Team Canada quarter-length sleeve mock hockey jersey, my favorite shirt. I've spread papers out like a university student studying for exams. The opening ceremony for the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics plays on TV as I squint to make out the details. I frantically write on papers, documenting everything. I draw out flags of each country as they march into the stadium. At commercial breaks, I ask my mom where our country is on the map. My mom has a degree from the University of Toronto in geography and has an atlas beside her, ready to point out even the smallest of countries. The procession is too fast, but I know we are taping the show on Betamax. I can go back later for the countries I miss. Where's Cameroon? I keep writing and drawing. My brother at 11 is much wiser than I am. He knows so much more about the Olympics. I follow his gaze. Canada is coming out soon. We are both swimmers for the Manitoba Marlins, and he already talks about the Olympics as a future dream. He holds nearly every Manitoba age group record. I look up to him at almost every turn and try to emulate him. I go fast in the water because he goes fast. I play hockey because he plays hockey. Because he wants to go to the Olympics, I want to go too. I hear the announcers proclaim Canada and look up to a sea of white and red. I picture myself in the procession, waving to the crowd. There's Alex, my brother says with glee as Canadian swimmer Alex Bowman appears on the screen carrying the flag for Canada into the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. I think that's Victor Davis and maybe Ann Ottenbright. I write their names down. I know my brother will be there someday, and I'll point him out to the crowd as he marches in. I know their names because my brother has their posters on his bedroom wall. As Canada walks around the stadium, my dad is in his usual spot on the couch behind the coffee table. What it must be like to walk into the stadium, my dad says, leaning closer to the TV as my mom comes and sits next to him, taking a reprieve from making dinner. I can see the pride in my parents' faces. This is a significant moment.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously a very significant moment as your life progressed and you made the Olympics. Tell me about writing that and remembering that moment that it seemed to change your life.
Yeah, my brother and I were just so dedicated to watching the Olympics, and that's really the first Olympics I can remember watching. I'm not sure if my parents had us watch the ones before that in 1980, but if you remember 1980, the Summer Olympics were the ones that the Canada boycotted. And the 1980 Winter Olympics were in Moscow. So I'm sure that the timing was weird. But that was really, I think, such an influenceable time for me as what I would have been 8 years old. And for the Olympics to be in prime time. So, I mean, when you're back in the day, there's only 4 or 5 different channels on TV. And for them to have the Olympics on TV at the time that we were, home from school, and it was pretty surreal and pretty special. And those particular Olympics really, I think, changed me in a way that I saw sport as more than just playing outside. I saw it as something to attain and something to reach for. And it was the first time that I dreamt about going to the Olympics. And it is so amazing to see so many young kids talk to me about that moment now of having watched us be in that position. The Salt Lake City Games, I think, is a very iconic time for a lot of the current Olympians. You think 10 years later, and those people are now at the Olympic level. 20 years later, those girls are still playing. So a lot of what I experienced watching the swimmers on TV, now the current Olympians experience watching us on TV. So it certainly has come full circle, and it is strange to think, but the Olympics is such a microcosm of an ideal world. It can give you so many hopes and so many dreams, and whether you attain that or not, it has this iconic thing to reach for. And I think that for me, it all started with just watching those games on TV. And in Los Angeles, the Russian bloc boycotted. So it meant that Canadians actually climbed up on the podium a lot more than we would have. I'm not saying that it's not like we wouldn't have, but we were very instrumental in winning a lot of medals at those Olympics. So it also made me really think that Canada on the world stage was very dominant, and I wanted to be part of that. Now, that wasn't always the case, but Los Angeles gave me maybe a little bit of a false sense of sort of the reality in summer sport. But it meant that, watching other Canadians and hearing the national anthem really gave me a guidepost to look for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it definitely must have. There's so many kids that are inspired by the Olympians. You can tell that these, people are doing it for the love of the sport. It's not about the money and not about the fame, not about, a lot of the other things that people try to attain. Once you, the great thing about this book is it weaves in and out from years present to flashbacks to your childhood and the past. The very next chapter, or not chapter, but the very next section of this book is the 1998 Olympics in Nagano. And there's a passage in the book that said, once you were at the opening ceremonies, one journey around the stadium takes about 5 minutes, but I feel a lifetime of memories flood back to me. Tell me about those moments. There's been a couple of times in your life where you said that you were at these opening or closing ceremonies, and it's a short amount of time in the space of the world, but a lifetime of memories are flooding back. That's incredible.
Yeah, you're so right that it really for me happened at the opening and closing ceremonies. And I think the reason why so many athletes talk so highly about the ceremonies is there's no pressure. You can't mess it up. It's not a game where you're needing to be focused, and it's the one time as an athlete at the Olympics that you can kind of just you can just kind of relax and be with your friends and really take it all in. When you're playing, I get asked all the time what it's like to play at the Olympics or what it's like to win a medal. It's different. It is, you're doing your job, and you're not really able to take in the crowd or really realize the situation, because you might become overwhelmed if you really think about, oh my gosh, I'm at the Olympics and I'm playing against the Americans in a final game. You might become a little bit unnerved by that, but you can think about that during the opening and closing ceremonies. You can really let your lifetime of experiences flush over you. And I know for me, walking on the stadium, that's when you kind of feel it. You feel these, you feel this momentous moment. But you're also, for me, I'm sitting there walking beside Jennifer, and, what do you say to your buddy when you're walking around, except for this is awesome? And, so you're both kind of thinking your own thing, but on one hand, it is, there you are just walking in a stadium with a friend. And on the other hand, this is the Olympic Games, realizing so many people are watching back home, and remembering those moments of being a little girl and watching it with my family, thinking how many other families are sitting there watching this as well. So for me, it made me think of all the minor hockey coaches that I had, all the different sports I played, all the teammates I had, and just all the people that made that moment possible, for good and for bad, and the ups and downs. But there I was on the walking out at the opening ceremonies at the Olympic Games. So I think it's just it's such a surreal experience, because you think it's going to be, I don't know, there's going to be fireworks and there's going to be all this other stuff going on. But the reality is, there you are with just your teammates that you're with every single day, walking this path. And so you have this like dichotomy of the two feelings of like just this huge moment, but then you're just hanging out with your buds, So it was, it's pretty special. And I think most Olympians will talk about the ceremonies that way, of just the lack of pressure and just being able to take it all in.
Yeah, yeah. I've talked to many Olympians over the years, and a lot of the same sentiments that you just spoke about. They speak about the 2010 games here in Vancouver. It changed my life. I was a broadcaster covering professional sports, and feeling a little bit disillusioned with the way it was. I would walk into a locker room, and I could tell the athletes that was their least favorite part of their day, as having the reporters come in and ask them why did they lose, and what's going on, what were you thinking, feeling, all that kind of thing. So I started to really wonder if this was going to continue to be my path. And then the Olympics were announced that they were coming here to Vancouver, my hometown. I was really excited, and there was a lot of World Championship, World Cup events that were here held, trying to see how the stadiums and arenas and things like
Right.
that.
Yeah, like the pre-events, all of that
Pre-events,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and I started meeting a lot of the Olympians, and I could tell that they were doing this for the love of the sport. They weren't doing it, like I mentioned earlier, for the fame, the fortune. A lot of people that I do see, once they attain that goal and they're making millions of dollars, it seems to change them, and they're not doing it for the love of the sport anymore. Long story short, it just really made me fall in love with Olympic sports, and I really want to drive that for kids, for people that are able to fulfill these lifelong dreams because they saw that athlete as a young age, like you did, attaining a podium, getting a medal. It just was an iconic moment for me, and also for the whole entire country, to have those Olympic Games here. We were so successful, and it was so fun. Tell me about, just seeing the Olympics here and how great we did, and how much inspiration it must have created for all the kids around the world.
Yeah, for sure. I leading up to the Vancouver Olympics, I was already working as a professional speaker, and I would, at the beginning of my speeches, I would share this Olympic highlights video, and it was all the different sports, to kind of get people in the crowd, because my clients are not all athletic. I mean, they're not all hockey fans, but get them in the Olympic spirit so that they are feeling that sort of moment when I'm about to talk. And so I would share this video with them, and I'd get them into the moment, and I would give my speech. And I think that what resonated with the audience members was then different after Vancouver. I think I tried to explain during my speeches prior that the Olympics takes over a country. The Olympics will take over your spirit, and will take over the hopes and dreams of young children that have the ability to watch it. But that wasn't really real for the most of the people that were listening to my speech until after Vancouver. And after Vancouver, I feel like the message was so, it resonated so well, because people had experienced it. And I'm sure, being in Vancouver, that at the beginning of the Vancouver Olympics, it took a while for Canadians to really get behind the Olympics. I see that you have Patriot Hearts behind you. I just finished reading that. And it really, it talks about sort of that climb through it, and that they were unsure whether Canadians would even really rally. But then in the end, it was a coast to coast phenomenon. And so many young children, and I think so many adults, were so inspired by so many of those moments. And so many of the Canadian athletes performed so well on the world stage, which was incredible to see. Now, for me and for our family, it was hard because it was the first time that I wasn't a part of the games. So I'd been cut in 2008. So watching the 2010 Olympics was tough, but those were still my friends, and I still wanted them to do well. I had been awarded an award by Coca-Cola for my work on the CWHL. So I had been invited out to Vancouver. So I went out to Vancouver, watched the girls play at one point. And I'm glad I did, because I just walked the streets and got to kind of really feel what it was like to be a fan at the Olympics, really for my first time. And I cheered in the stands just by myself up in the rafters, and could just kind of take it all in for what it felt like to be on the other side. And so that doesn't mean that there wasn't still that heartache, which was hard. And then going to the Paralympics right after, my husband, who's a sledge hockey player for Canada, I don't know if you remember how sledge hockey ended up, but they were in a semifinal game against Japan, who they've beaten every single time, and ended up losing on a shot that actually went off of my husband into the net, and in the final seconds. And it was just devastating for them to then come in fourth, and they didn't get a medal. And the men's and women's team had won a medal. So here I was, having had this amazing experience in Vancouver. I went out to watch him with some of my girlfriends that I'd played hockey with, and we had an amazing time. And we had all of this Vancouver swag that we came back with, and none of it could go up, because for him, I mean, that was just like devastation. They had won the gold medal in Torino 4 years prior. So to come away with no medal was really hard. For it to be the home Olympics was really hard. And even as recent as last week, he was doing a commercial shoot for one of his sponsors. And we have this really cool orca Salish painting that was from the Vancouver Olympics, has a little tiny Vancouver logo, and it was in the background. I just put it up behind him, and he's like, that probably can't stay for too long. So it's still really hard, but anytime something is, pains you that much, it just means you care. It means that you really, you just cared so much about it. And, I think he still looks back fondly at the Vancouver Olympics, because for the first time people knew what sledge hockey was, and the crowds were packed. And so he felt this monumentous step for a disabled sport. And I think he acknowledges that, like it was amazing to see Canadians rally behind the Paralympics as much as they did the Olympics, which isn't always the case. And so that was really special. And maybe, 10 years from now, I can finally put all those pictures up that I got, because I was just a tourist. I was just having a good time. But acknowledging that maybe it wasn't the most pleasant for him at the time. But Vancouver certainly did an amazing job, and all of Canadians really rallied behind the Olympics, which was really special.
Yeah, very special. I was so happy to see, the fan support behind the Paralympics as well. And your husband is so accomplished. I understand that he's trying to make the 2022 games, and that would be his 6th Olympics. That'll be an absolutely incredible accomplishment if he can make the team.
For sure. And I think really it's up to him at this point. I think he's still good enough. I think he can be there. It just, depending on the pandemic, depending on, life, things get in the way, but injuries can happen, knock on wood. But ultimately, I think he's still so good. He's changed his role within the team, but he has the most all-time points ever in sledge hockey. So whenever I watch him play, I think, he's amongst the best in the world still. So I'm hoping he'll continue to want to play, but only because selfishly I love watching him play. But at some point, every career ends, as we all know. And at some point, there'll be a younger group of guys pushing for that spot. But I'm hoping that not only the Tokyo Olympics happen, but the Beijing Olympics happen, and he gets to have that experience at least one more time. But who knows? Who knows what is happening in the world right now? And you just kind of have to take every day at a time. He's pretty happy to finally be back on the ice, but we are in the Peel region, so the ice is limited, and it's very sporadic around here. So you just, every time you get a chance to step on the ice, you appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that he's able to, continue his career and make the Hall of Fame. I think he deserves to be in there, being the most accomplished sledge hockey player, as you say, most points and everything. So I really, touched. I resonated with a few things that you said in the book, and a few things that you just mentioned there. And I guess the one thing that I saw you talk about a lot is setbacks and failure. The quotes that you give when you talk about that, I think are really important for people to realize, because I think some people get some failures, get some setbacks, get cut from teams, and it devastates them to the point where they quit the sport. They leave something that they're passionate about. They don't realize that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and they have an ability to make this their life's work, like you did. Talk about what you say to people during your speeches and things like that when they talk about setbacks and failure.
I think it's really important for people to be able to connect and have that human connection. And I really feel like when I speak from the stage, what resonates most with people is, talking about the struggles. And, I could stand up there as an Olympian and say, oh, you too can win a gold medal if you just put your heart into it. But that's not the reality. The reality is we're all living our own lives, and we all have different goals. We all have different things we want to accomplish, and we all get put into roles at times that we don't want to be in. And it's acknowledging that. It's acknowledging that, life is not fair, and that we don't all have the same challenges and struggles, and to have empathy and sympathy for the people around you, because you don't know what their story is. And I think that that's really important, and lessons that I might not have learned had I not been in those positions. So in having played sort of every role within a team, I think each particular role taught me something different. But, sometimes when you're not in the role you want to be in, you have to try to find something that will keep you going on. And it's not easy. You say often people will leave sport or leave, quit work or not pursue what they, wanted in the first place because they don't see another path. And sometimes that's hard. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to just leave as well. To not feel guilty about making these decisions, but doing really what's right for you. And, there's a lot of times that I could have left hockey, but I think I still found the joy in it. And so it's realizing why you want to stop something. It's realizing why do you want to quit. And if it is because it is not fun anymore, then I think that that's okay. That's, you've come to that realization and it isn't pleasant. It isn't a nice experience. You move on to something that you really do love. But the thing with hockey is that despite the setbacks and maybe not getting to play or being put in different roles, I still always found joy on the ice. And that's what I always went back to. And so I tried to see it in the perspective that, maybe I wasn't playing, but what can I do to support my teammates? What can I do to be there for the other people? And how can I find joy through them? Sometimes we need that. But also we need people to help us along the way. And I try to encourage people when I'm giving a speech from the stage to be a role model, be a mentor, but also just look around you to see maybe who needs a helping hand, who needs you to reach out to them, who's having a tough time. And sometimes it just takes little words of encouragement. I talk a lot about Danielle Goyette in the book, and she was never a captain on our team. However, she always had the ability to see when there was kind of an issue and just ask you how it was going. And just in those few words, it makes you feel a part of something. It makes you feel like somebody else cares when you think nothing in the world is going right for you. Here's somebody that reached out and acknowledged my pain, my difficult circumstance, whatever it is. And so I think we can all do that for each other. And we don't do that enough. We don't reach out to others around us in our communities. And I'm hoping that, despite the devastation of the pandemic, it's brought communities closer together. And we can all do little things. Like when this started, what do we do? How do you kind of connect with people? But my daughter and I, I wrote it, but I made my daughter come with me and deliver notes to everybody in the community just to check in and see how they were doing. And obviously you can't have that one-on-one conversation with people, but we've met more neighbors in the last 9 months than we've known in the 4 years living in this house. So it's the little things to make sure that people are okay. And so many people did that for me in my career that I think it is allowed me to look around me and to see who maybe needs that little help along the way, for sure.
No, that's great. Yeah, really good message there. Yeah, with the world changing and everybody being at home a lot more, you are seeing your neighbors a lot more.
For
And
sure.
yeah, I mean, there are some things that are positive that come out of everything. I've noticed, I definitely have talked to people a lot more, around my community. And you do have to check in with people a lot more. I think, life can get very busy and you forget all of a sudden it's months have gone by and you haven't talked to a friend. And, with this, I think we reach out, we hear people are having mental health troubles because that isolation is tough on human beings. Some people are very extroverted type of people and having no social interaction for so many months, it was tough on people. But I think it has brought a lot of families closer together, a lot of fathers and mothers working. They're not around home very much. Now a lot of people are working from home. So I'm looking at that as a positive for sure.
Yeah, and I think we all need to look at some of the positives and, acknowledge the hardships that lots of people are going through. We've been fortunate to not have anybody close to us touched by COVID, but that doesn't mean that, when we're at the grocery store, somebody else beside you hasn't been, so Yeah, there's a lot of really tough things going on right now for people. So those little moments of glimmers of hope when you get together with friends on Zoom or, yeah, and you're right that as life gets busier, you forget to do these things. And even I've noticed as the pandemic progresses and you start to sort of get back into your routines again, you forget about that. I think we connected with friends in the first month that we hadn't seen forever. And then you forget that, time goes by but just how fun that was. I connected with a group of friends that I went to college with and, we haven't talked in 20 years, but what do you do during the pandemic? But you connect. So I think those connections are vital and important too.
Yeah, exactly. I want you to talk about your experience as an executive. You became the general manager of the Fury, and then you were able to actually be one of the driving forces behind the CWHL and start that league. Women's hockey had a very big milestone moment last year in May. Your league decided that they probably weren't going to be playing anymore, and then 200 players said, we aren't going to be playing anywhere at all anymore. We really want to make sure that women are treated better, paid better financially. It's not fair the way it is. A huge milestone moment in women's hockey, and where does the future hold? Will there be a WNHL? Will there be something that rivals the WNBA in basketball? Will we see this sport take another big leap forward in the next coming years?
Yeah, interesting. You're right. It was a huge milestone for good or for bad in women's hockey. When the league folded, it was tough. Having put in so much time and effort into it, it was devastating, and it was something that I think that when they came out and said it wasn't sustainable, that was hard news because those of us inside knew that, the league operated on $3.5 million. And so that to me is sustainable. It just isn't maybe the wage that you want it to be. To me, the league didn't fold because of women's hockey or the lack of fans behind the game. I think it folded because of the business that was set up and the people that were at the helm at the time on the board chose it to go in this direction. And that's, hard having helped started in the beginning to see it kind of collapse that way. And after the fact, you're right, 200 players came out and said that they weren't going to play anywhere. However, 200 players still continued to play professional hockey in the National Women's Hockey League. So now what you have is players on one side, which includes the majority of the Olympians from north and south of the border, not playing. And then you have a league that is operating that has influx of money that seems to be progressing in a good direction from what I see, but isn't really a livable wage yet. So the girls are making, say, $15,000 a year. Well, these girls on this side are sitting out and will probably sit out for 3-4 years without that wage that would have happened, 3 times, 4 times 15,000 is still $60,000 that you're missing out on. And for the national team players, it's not a huge deal because those girls are paid to play by the federal government. You receive money from Hockey Canada. You are a full-time hockey player. So USA Hockey, Canadian Hockey Girls. But for that next level of player, the player that is almost on the national team or could play in the NWHL, that's where the really difficult decision lies. And those are the people that I have the most admiration for. And some have stuck with the PW because they really believe that the only sustainable future is under the NHL umbrella. And that might be the case. And, they've worked hard to really show that there should be an equitable wage and that it is time for that. The tough thing is that there is a league for these people to play in. They could play over here, and it maybe isn't on the same path. And I think that what is difficult now coming out of the pandemic is what is the NHL's interest? And as a fan, now, I'm simply just a fan. it would be nice to know, because it would be nice to know which horse to get behind. It would be nice to know who to push, to support, to, you know, you don't want to be seen taking sides. And that's the toughest thing in women's hockey right now, is there are sides that you are, you know, if you're supporting one, people see you not supporting the other. But I really want to support both. And I have admiration and respect for players on both sides. I'm excited for what will come up at the end, because I think when eventually the best players are playing in the best leagues, then it's going to be incredible. Already, you know, the point that we've got to in women's hockey is some incredible skill and amazing product. And now it's just about getting fans to know where these girls are playing, when they're playing, and getting the word out there. It's never been an issue about the product. It's never been an issue about the amount of fans we have. I mean, the last Olympic Games, there's like 10 million people that watched the final. So the fans are there, the product is there. Now it's just kind of combining those two. So it's a little bit of a mishmash right now, but I am excited about the future. And I think that, you know, both groups have some incredible leaders at the helm who have really thought through some of these issues, and hopefully can work together in the end to make something really viable and long lasting, that these girls feel like is a, you know, livable wage in a place that they want to play.
Sure. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I'm glad that such great minds are involved, and hopefully it isn't 3-4 years where those girls aren't playing. That seemed like a really long time to not be making a wage and be out of the spotlight, and
just be missing. You know, I talk in the book a lot about the club hockey. Like, you're just missing out on bus rides and hanging out with your friends, and so. I just, for those girls, Olympians and non-Olympians alike, I just want them to have those experiences, because you have a limited time in professional hockey after you graduate from university. So we don't want to lose an entire generation of girls to this.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people have, you know, came to you with ideas on what to do and, you know, how to make it work. I've got ideas too. Hopefully, you know, we can get a lot of people on the same page. The sport that I look to as a really big example is tennis, and tennis has been able to get the women on the same playing field level, you know, purses for the men's and women's tournaments. I'm not sure how they got there. You know, that is something to really look into, but is that something that any of these leagues have talked about, and how the tennis world has been able to get onto that level playing field?
For sure. And the PWHPA actually has Billie Jean King helping direct them. And Billie Jean King was part of the women that really pushed the professional tennis to have equal pay. And first of all, to have pay at all, but to have equal pay. And there was a group of, I believe it was 9 women that sat out and said, we're not playing until you pay us fairly. And I think that that's why coming under the NHL umbrella would be an amazing thing for women's hockey, because then they're part of that machine. You're part of the marketing. You're part of playing in the big rinks. And then you can start to ask for fair and equal pay within that, especially if you're getting the same fans. Yeah. What's hard is not knowing what the NHL wants to do in the end. And Gary Bettman has come out and supported women's hockey at a certain level when it comes to including women in the All-Star game and supporting the federations. And I'm sure, you know, there's talks going on behind scenes that none of us know about. And, you know, it's more, I guess, a curiosity on my part. You know, if Gary's not going to, or the NHL is not going to get behind it, then let's create something over here that's really great. If Gary's going to get behind it and the NHL sees, you know, a viable future under that umbrella, then let's get behind that. You know, it's like, you just want to know. You're just curious as a fan which way, because you're right. There's so many other viable models out there. And that's what the NWHL is working towards, is they're looking at these other models of how can we be sustainable? How can we build internally to build a league that is self-sustaining outside of men's hockey? Yep. And the other side wants to be underneath that umbrella. So both are, you know, good options. I have people all the time that tell me, oh, you guys should do this or you should do that. And that's very true. However, without a say, you know, it's probably not a bad thing that I don't have a say anymore, but without having much influence, it's hard to sort of steer it in one direction or the other. And even the people at the helm of both of these entities have been told all these things too. It's not like they haven't done their research. They don't have people working on viable options, but sometimes politics plays a part. Sometimes where women are living plays a part. Sometimes the availability, the wants, the needs, they're different. And so I have full faith that these people will figure it out, and that they're getting lots of good advice, and it might just take time. It might just take some time before we see the two sides come together.
Yeah, I think it will take a little bit of time, but it seems like a no-brainer to me. All these teams, they have their dates set, but these arenas are, empty a lot of nights of the year. It'd be nice to have a second tenant in there, being the women's team. There's great arenas around the league where they could make it work, and it seems like a no-brainer. If I was there, you would really want to bring a lot of female fans to the sport, as well as I think the females would watch the NHL team as well as the WNHL team.
You just need to be Gary Bettman. Now you just,
right.
You just need somebody in position of power that can make that decision, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about the next wave of girls coming through. You have a hockey school that's in 4 provinces, and you're mentoring and coaching and being able to bring a lot of these young girls into the sport that you love. Tell me about the reward that you get from having these hockey schools and being able to develop these young girls in your camps.
Well, what I love about the hockey schools is that we, initially when I started it now 22 years ago, there was no other place for girls to go and play where they saw other girls, especially in some of these smaller provinces. So running it in Manitoba, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, it was really the first time that girls could kind of get together in an environment like this. So that was really special. But as women's hockey in all these provinces have grown, and here I live now in Mississauga in Ontario, has grown exponentially, there is other opportunities like this for girls. So now what I've done is I've really wanted the camp to be a place where girls can meet their heroes. So I bring in a lot of my friends, but also some of the local heroes as well. So girls from the local CIS teams, girls playing NCAA college, and the girls that have gone through the camp that have now reached the pinnacle. Nice. But the camp is not about, it's not about excellence. The camp is about instilling a love for the game. And so, we don't push the girls really hard. It's the middle of the summer. It's not a time to get injured or to go super hard, but you're going to learn a lot of different things. You're going to learn from some of these Olympians and world champions and local superstar players. But you're also going to learn how to be a good person. You're also going to learn how to interact with these other girls from all across the province. I try to really make the camp inclusive so that about 1/3 of the girls are on bursaries from various different areas. And how my camp works is all you have to do to come to my camp is write me a letter telling me why you love hockey. And you can choose to pay whatever amount you want to pay. So costs $490 to go to the camp. If you want to pay $5, that's okay. If you want to pay $480, that's okay too. If you want anywhere in the middle, and no questions asked. I never want hockey school to be inclusive of one kind of person or because you have money. It could be, your family might have money, but you might be the 5th sibling, so you don't get to go to camp.
Wow.
Or you might come from a family that never had been exposed to hockey. And so this isn't something that is important to your parents. So, for whatever reason, they're coming to the camp. I want them to still have that same experience. And I say on the front of my website that if you're still playing hockey at the age of 50, then I think we've done our job. So we're not about creating the next Olympians. We're not about, making superstars. But we're really about teaching the love of the game and keeping girls fit and active, especially all the way through, so that they want to be doing something like this after the age of 18, and that they're giving back to the game. They're becoming coaches. They're becoming referees. and they're, encouraging their kids eventually someday to play.
That's great. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, that's fantastic that you are so inclusive and allowing girls, to come and pay what they can. I saw that Hockey Canada had a $1 million initiative yesterday to try to help supplement some of the registration fees and
That's
help a
great.
lot more kids. Yeah, and Jerome McGinley was one of the spokespeople out there talking about it. Really great to see, especially during this COVID time. A lot of people have been out of work and losing their jobs and things, and financial situations have changed for many families. So, it's nice to see hockey, people like yourself and Hockey Canada being able to recognize it and make sure it is inclusive.
For sure. And I'm lucky to be in a position where it isn't my full-time job. So I am a professional speaker by by real job. And so we are in a position where as long as you're breaking even and I can pay my instructors, for me, it's just as rewarding at the end of the day. Now, obviously, that's not the case with all hockey schools and all things, but at least having a place that girls can come that they feel is just as strong of a camp and feel accepted, I think is really cool. And it's also really important, I think, for people to be exposed to different diverse backgrounds as well, because you might not otherwise have the opportunity to get to know somebody that you might not have been friends with at school, but here you are at camp and they're sitting beside you in the dressing room, and now suddenly they're your best friends and friends for life. So that's really special, and that's what sport provides, I think, is these friendships that you might not have been friends with these people otherwise, but you are all of a sudden thrown onto a team. And like you said at the beginning, ages 17 to 40 played on the Olympic team, and those are, we're sitting in the dressing room together. You got to get along. So sport can do that.
Yeah, well, it's really nice to talk about the youth and young girls playing the sport. You grew up in Winnipeg. Girls hockey wasn't a possibility for you, so you joined a lot of boys teams. There's a part in the book where you are lacing on your skates. It's 15 below. You're about to step on the ice. You're all by yourself. You really relished those opportunities and being on that fresh sheet of ice. A lot of the words that you waxed through that poetic part of the book, I really loved. But the thing that really just blew me away was that arena is actually named for you now. Imagine the honor. Everybody, the viewers and listeners, just imagine the honor of that. A little girl skating by herself on that arena, and then years later, the community decides to name it after Sami Jo Small Arena. That's incredible. It must have been one of the highest honors you've ever received.
Well, and it certainly was. It was, it's a small community arena, and so it's, not a big deal to a lot of other people. But to me, to my family, to the guys that I grew up playing with, it was really special. And I think the neatest and maybe most special part about it was that now little boys and little girls can grow up on a rink named after a female, and that is just normal for them. They can walk into the rink and there's now like a big Sami Jo painting when you walk in, and the kids can say like, oh, she's from my community, I want to be just like her. And that could be little boys and little girls, and that's so awesome to see. There's, across the country, a lot of my teammates have had this honor. And I can remember actually playing in the CWHL and playing against Kim St. Pierre, who was my goalie partner for a long time, a Toronto versus Montreal game in Chateauguay, which is where she's from, and there's a Kim St. Pierre arena, and we played in the rink. And so there's all these amazing pictures of her winning championships there as we're playing a professional hockey game, which was really special. Wow. Angela James talks about, she grew up in Scarborough, like basically in tough part of Toronto. And the rink that she went to in this, pretty tough area is now called the Angela James Arena. And I love hearing her words about it, but because she just talks about how she felt different because she was a girl. But now little girls can walk into it and they feel a part of it as well. And little boys that are super excited that they're going to play at the Angela James rink, that's really cool to see. So it's amazing how communities have honored women. And I think it's, so it was amazing for me, but more than that, I was just super proud of my community for choosing a woman. As a little girl, that would have never been possible. So to see that is really special.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Incredible. Yeah, I have yet to see the arena, but I travel the country a
Let's
lot.
just pretend like it's a giant NHL arena.
Yeah,
It's really not. It's this tiny little.
I'm excited for you, and I was really happy to see you get that honor. And you're right. Little boys and little girls can aspire to the heights that you reached, just being able to skate in their local rink. So it's fantastic. There's a million things I want to talk about. Oh my God, I can't believe the time flies by like this. I loved all the pictures in the book, loved all the journals that you kept, all the amazing anecdotes and things that you remembered over the history. Something that jumped out to me was that you seem to be a big music lover. Canadian bands were quite prominent. I saw that you got to play hockey with Gord Downie of the Tragically Hip, and Great Big Sea was a band that you loved, and so many of the iconic Canadian music figures seem to be part of your life. Are you as big a music lover as I am?
So Darren, I'd like to say yes, but I unfortunately no. So my brother would be so embarrassed for me, but my brother was a huge music fan. So he was into tons of Canadian music, tons of indie bands, and our rooms were side by side. So I grew up listening to all this stuff, but I am a radio person. So I'm a talk radio junkie. And so I'm complete opposite to him. However, it meant that my influences were all of these Canadian bands. And when I started to, play hockey at a higher level and you're sort of exposed to a bunch of different musicians, I would meet guys and have no idea who these people were. And anytime I was in a big moment, I would always call my brother after and say, oh, this is what happened. And he would just be floored. Like I can remember going over to Gord Downie's house, and I had listened to the Tragically Hip through him. I knew they were a big deal. But for me, getting to meet Gord and sitting there, we were the two goalies on the outdoor rink. So sitting there getting dressed in his basement, basically in our goalie equipment, we're talking goalie stuff. Like he's asking me about certain moves. Like it's not even like I'm asking him what it's like to play on this giant stage, or he's asking me about the Olympics. It's more like, okay, in the corner, like what do you do in this situation? And we're just chatting hockey. That was my first encounter. And I can remember talking to my brother when I got home, and he was just like, you are an idiot. Like, like I need to like teach you more about this stuff. And I have a cousin that actually, when I played in the Juno Cup. So the Juno Cup is obviously the Junos, they have a music rockers versus legends in hockey. Right. I started playing this. And so then I really started to get to meet a lot of these people. And I have a cousin that made me like a 10-disc, actually it was a cassette tape compilation of the best Canadian music so that I would have like a reference. It was almost like I had to study for the Juno Cup. So I would say my favorite kind of music is like Celtic music. I really love Great Big Sea. And I love music like the Bare Naked Ladies. That's just kind of that folky type music if I was to choose. But I kind of love all kinds of music. And back in the day, I think I've made reference a couple times that, on our little MP3 players, that little iPods, is that what they were called? iPods? Yeah, the tiny ones, yeah. And when they were big at the time, and then they went to tiny. Yeah. They didn't fit many songs, so right. You got to put your 50 songs on there, and that was it. So choosing was pretty easy for me because I liked most songs, but I always felt like Celtic music put me in a good spirit. Nice. And Great Big Sea often played downtown Winnipeg, which was awesome. And then getting to meet Tyler Stewart from the Bare Naked Ladies. He was a huge women's hockey supporter. He had two girls, they played. He had a sister that played. Nice. And he himself played rec hockey. And so I actually met him for the first time playing rec hockey with him. Wow. I knew Bare Naked Ladies were a big deal, but to me, it was more just a guy that I could talk hockey with. That's and they probably have become our closest friends within the music world. So they were at our wedding, and I often forget that he is like of the Bare Naked Ladies, you know, like that this is insane. Whenever I walk into a store and you hear If I Had $1 Million, I'm like, I know that guy. Like it's, so I wish, Sharon, that I knew more about music, and I'm really trying. My husband now is a huge musician. He's from PEI. They did kitchen parties growing up, so he can play like every instrument. Now when we go to the Junos, he can play alongside these guys. So the last time, a year and a half ago, we were at the Juno Cup, and he was, you know, playing guitar with Jim Cuddy and just like loving it, and just he can really, really appreciate it. I think I resonate so much with musicians because it's finding anybody in any walk of life that has dedicated a lifetime to their craft or their profession. You tend to have similarities. So artists or musicians, I think we just kind of think alike, despite the fact that I can't profess to play much music, or really probably am tone deaf at the end of the day.
I see. Well, it's funny the way you describe that, because I was always a music lover growing up. I had a younger sister, and I was trying so hard to get her into the music that I love. And
right. Like older brothers think they have to tell their younger sisters. Yeah.
And it was impossible. She never got what I liked. But luckily I had some cousins that I ended up really loving a lot of the music I liked, and a lot of younger kids around my neighborhood, and you know, so a lot of musician friends, you know, that have done really well over their lifetimes. So I still have.
Awesome. Well, you probably know so much more. But do you play at all? Do you?
Yeah, I dabble, but no, mostly just for the love of music. And yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It was nice to see Barney Bentall, and you know, see.
Yeah, and those guys.
You know, see,
hockey fans, which is awesome.
So many great musicians. I heard you got up on stage and was able to introduce the bands before, and I thought, oh wow, this girl has got to be a big music lover.
I know. You would. That's why I think, you know, my brother and my cousin have like tried to do this music education. But yeah, like I came back one year from the Juno Cup, and I think I was already dating or married my husband at that point. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, he was such an amazing man.
Sure,
so incredible. I mean, I saw him play so many times, and so it's not like I'm not a fan. I mean, I guess I just don't have the background. But I came back one time from the Junos, and I think I started dating Billy at that point. And you know, I said the best guy on the ice. He didn't even have like a last name. It just was written like classified across his back. Like, what's up with that? He's like, oh my God, don't say that in public. Like, here you go. Like, here's everything that he plays. And in the end, I really love his music. But I just, being a talk radio person, you know, you're exposed to what CBC shows you. I mean, you're not exposed to much, but it could be on any station, and I really do appreciate it. So
nice. Yeah. I'm a talk radio fan too, but I love my music. I do want to, we probably have to wrap it up. You're a busy woman. I'm sure you got tons to do. But I do want to touch on two things before you go. I want you to talk about your parents and the support that they've given you, and how important that was. As well as, I do want you to mention being well-rounded in sports. So many families get their child into a certain sport, and they just go year round with it, and they don't diversify themselves. And I've heard that you find that very important, that you get to play all the sports and get an opportunity to, you know, try them all. You wouldn't have got your education at Stanford if you weren't in track and field, probably. And yeah, so talk about those two things. Let's start with
for sure.
Yeah, let's start with the support your parents gave you.
Well, I think it's kind of all wrapped up together. So I think, you know, I'm very lucky and very fortunate to, well, be born in Canada, where girls are allowed to do these things. But as a young girl, there wasn't opportunities for girls in hockey, and it wasn't really acceptable for girls to play hockey. But my parents, and I say this story a lot, but could see the smile and the joy that it brought me. And I think they, you know, wanted to have their daughter have that joy. And it didn't matter if it was hockey or whatever sport. They don't have a hockey background, but they just wanted me to be happy, really, at the end of the day. But they also were incredibly diligent about exposing us to a lot of different things. And, we got to play so many different sports. And I know it's easy for me to say every kid should play every sport and, let them find their passion. But for a lot of families, that's not a reality. And for a lot of places you live in this country, that's not a reality. So I've witnessed firsthand here now in the GTA what it's like for kids that play hockey. Like if you play hockey and your parents work, by the time they get home from work, it might be 6:00. Well, then you have to, for an hour, you have to commute to where your hockey is. And then you're done late at night. And then by the time you're home, that's it. Whereas growing up in a smaller community of Winnipeg, I could go to volleyball practice, and then I might have had hockey practice, and then I might have had, a water polo practice or a game or something all in the same night. And that, might just not be the case in a lot of places here. So also I feel like sports are requiring kids to be more committed. So you can't miss, or somebody else will take your spot, especially on the rep teams or the higher level teams. So I really commend coaches that encourage kids to play other sports. And it might just be two sports, in your off season, or maybe you're playing hockey, but you're also playing one of your school sports when school sports open back up again. So that you have this kind of not only just exposure to other sports, but you can play a different role on a different team. Like you might be more skilled or less skilled. And it just exposes you to more people, more potential friendships, more people that you can learn through. And I think it teaches your body to decompress from one sport as you move to the other sport. It's different body awareness in every sport, but it's also mentally a way to get away from, I know for myself as a goaltender, I might've had a bad game. Well, I have another team handball practice coming up. So I can only dwell on it for 20 minutes on the ride over, and then, you're into the next thing. So having something else to look for. So I guess my mind has shifted a bit, because I think the realities for a lot of families are different, and just what people can accomplish. But what I try to instill in everybody, not just youth, but is balance, is finding something that you like doing that takes you away from your main thing. That could be art, that could be music, that could be another sport, that could be your debate club at school, that could be a lunch hour activity, it could be anything, but just having something else so that you're not constantly dwelling on the ups or downs of one particular thing, I think just mentally allows you to be a little bit more even keeled, and not just like spikes and then valleys, which can happen when you have a kid just involved in one thing, because their whole mindset is wrapped around being that person. So yeah, I think I try to just stress balance now versus, make sure you expose your kids to sports and stuff. Cause that could be just hard. It's expensive, and it takes somebody to drive them there. And that's not necessarily the reality right across the country.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it was really nice to see. I talk to youth a lot, and I do recommend them to be well-rounded and have that ability. You're right. The smaller the city, the easier that can be.
Totally.
But, luckily there are a lot of small towns across this country and
That's
across,
right.
the North America, where kids do have those opportunities. This book was just such a great read. One of my favorite books I've ever read.
Thank you.
I'm so thrilled for you that
Thank you.
this long journey is captured now, and it can be that historical reference. You can go to samijosmall.ca and get a copy, correct?
You can go there, or you can go to any one of your local bookstores. I think they're in pretty much every bookstore across the country. So if you want to buy online, you can buy wherever you buy them. And
Yeah.
it's all the same money, no matter what, it's all the same money.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I found mine in the local bookstore. I was really happy there was a couple copies there. And
Nice.
it's flying off the shelves. Really great Christmas present. Really great, be able to share your story. I can't even believe how many more things I would love to talk to you about. I think
have to have me back on someday.
Yeah, I think we'll have to have you back on, especially if there are some developments with women's professional hockey. I'd love to get your insight again. And yeah, when the NHL season kicks back in, do you consume a lot of the NHL these days?
So
Were you
I mean,
playoff?
I did
Yeah,
during the pandemic. It was the most probably NHL I'd watched because when I was playing or GMing full time, all of our stuff happens in the evening.
right.
So we weren't able to, I was kind of I don't know if you're this way, but I watch highlights every morning eating my breakfast. So that's kind of how I consumed hockey.
Yeah.
And this pandemic was really the first time that I was able to like watch full games from, start to finish in what was the regular season. I would say my husband and I always tune in for the playoffs.
Right.
I'm a giant Jets fan. He's a big Habs fan. So,
Okay.
that's when we kind of get our jerseys out and we, make a special date night to go to the bar. But during the season, both of us, you're just so busy with your hockey. So this, despite everything with the pandemic, it was really nice to be able to watch games kind of back to back. Was pretty cool. Felt like they were playing like minor hockey all over again where you're at a tournament, but that was fun. So
Yeah, sure was fun. One of my favorite parts of it was during every intermission, we saw Cassie Campbell from her home in Calgary being able to
yeah,
impact her wisdom on the game. She is just absolutely unbelievable, such a trailblazer, and she adds so much depth to those broadcasts.
well, and so smart. That's the one thing in conversations that I had with her when she first started was, she always felt like she had to know more and do more research because she was the only female. But, all of that hard work and all of that dedication now allows her to just talk the game. I mean, that's the one thing that I'm so happy that she is. Not that she's not really good at interviewing guys between periods. She's great at that. But being an analyst, that's where her strength as a player was. And she just sees the game so well, and she's not afraid to give her opinion. So I think she's really, I think she's incredible. And I think that she's now in a position where she can really just be her. And she's no longer just the only girl in hockey. It's like, no, she's a smart hockey mind. And I'm glad that people are starting to realize that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm thrilled. She was always really fantastic for me to deal with, and I'm just so happy to see her being such a trailblazer. Another trailblazer, Leah Hextall. They came together. Her and Cassie were able to
Yeah,
call a game. That was a milestone moment for me and for women's hockey. That must have been a thrill for you to see. And
for
Leah's
sure.
a
And I think
Manitoba native too, right?
yeah, I had her host my book launch. I have such respect for her. And not easy, when you are the first at anything, the pressure is enormous. She's conversations with her said she just kind of blinked and there the game went, that was it, trying to really appreciate the moment. But I hope that she's given more opportunities because I think that, when you do something for the first time, it's everything is just strange and different and you're all of a sudden in an NHL rink and you're doing all this stuff. And I think she did an amazing job, but I can't wait to see until something like that becomes more regular. And somebody like her, who I think has really studied the game. She used to just sit at the top of University of Manitoba Bison games because nobody would hire her to do the play-by-play and she would just do it to herself, so somebody that is so dedicated like that, and it is apparent in her skill when she is doing the games. She's done our games in the CWHL for a long time, and so we've noticed and seen her skill, and I'm just so glad that the NHL now included her, but I do hope that it's not just a one-off. I hope that in the future that's part of what we hear, that is part of the way we consume hockey is not about whether it's a male voice or a female voice. It just is, do they know their stuff and are they good and can they be there? So Leah would be a perfect example. And I think she's coming along at the right time with the right expertise that hopefully she will be the one.
Yeah, let's hope. I'll keep my fingers crossed, and I'm sure she will be. Yeah, I can tell her dedication and love of the game, and coming from a hockey family like she did, yeah, she should be the one.
Yeah.
Is there any final words that you want to say that I didn't ask you that you were hoping we would mention? Anything that comes to
The
mind?
only thing that I would like to share with your listeners is if anybody, I can't do autographs across the country like I normally would doing book tours, but if anybody does buy a book and wants an autograph, whether for Christmas, for somebody else, or for them, they can just send me an email, and my email is on my website, so they can get all of that. But I went out and I bought these stickers that are fairly big that I can like sign to the person, and then you can just stick it on your book and give it to somebody or whatever. So if anybody wants that, they can just send me an email, and it's free of charge.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for your time today. This was really amazing. I was looking forward to it so much when you said you would come on, and I know my viewers and listeners were really excited. I got a lot of feedback coming in. I hope the book sales go really, really well. I hope people that are watching and listening book her for some speaking engagements. She's really great at what she does there.
You're my new agent. I love it.
Yeah, I'd love to be your agent. Yeah, you're going places. So,
well, thanks. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much for having me on and for doing the whole setup with Hockey Canada. It made me feel right at home.
I'm glad. Okay, thanks so much, Sami.
All right.
Take care of yourself. And we'll talk again soon.
Okay, sounds good. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right. Well, that was fantastic. I'm just going to end it right there, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to Complete Sports Media, and give us your feedback. Go to our website and buy the book. Make sure you get it. Thanks so much. Love you all. Take care. Bye for now. Okay. Yeah. Thanks everybody for watching. That was a really fantastic episode. Really excited that we could bring Sami in, and it's nice to get a female presence. Nice to be able to display some Hockey Canada gear and talk about this fantastic book. What a great read. What a great woman and trailblazer. Very nice to see her life story in print, and she's been able to share so many amazing stories. Rush out, get the book. Yeah, let's get lots of views, lots of likes. Let's really promote this well. I want to get a lot more female presence on our airwaves. I'd really like to get a lot of her teammates and a lot of the great females that are in the world of sports. So thanks again for tuning in. Go to our website, go to our Instagram, Facebook. Really support us and support Sami. Thanks so much, Sami, for all your time today. It was really wonderful. I enjoyed it immensely. Take care of yourself. Okay. Bye for now. Love you.